the weather forecast with C3 Production.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and happy to have you again on the weather forecast. I hope your Saturday is coming on really great. Tonight, we expect more of a humid weather with moderate precipitation in some parts of the center, west, and the far north regions. A minimum of 16 degrees may be experienced in the northwest and Adamawa regions. The south and east getting a minimum of 19 degrees. The southwest and the north regions may have as low as 20 degrees. Detailing, we take you over to the center region, where this evening heavy rainfall is expected to dominate the entire region, and a similar experience by morning with as low as 19 degrees in the town of Mfu. Next, we move to the west region, where tonight heavy rainfall may dominate towns like Nchang and Mbuda, and by morning we may have heavy rainfall in the towns of Mbuda and Fumban. Lastly, we move over to the far north, where we may have heavy rainfall in the towns of Kaili and Yagua tonight, and a fully clouded sky, but with no chance of precipitation in the far north by morning. To protect yourself and others against the coronavirus, keep a 1 meter distance with everyone, avoid greeting by handshakes, and in case of symptoms, call 1510. See you next time.
The upward revision of certain old age and incapacity pensions granted by the National Social Insurance Fund by 20% is on the spotlight. Who is eligible to such benefits and how is the scheme organized? The 730 News investigates. Decent housing for all social groups. The state, through its Special Council Support Fund for Mutual Assistance and the Cameroon Housing Loan Fund, projects for funding. Nelson Mandela International Day is celebrated today in remembrance of Mandela's achievements, his outstanding contributions in conflict resolutions, democracy, human rights, peace and reconciliation is highlighted. Good evening, thanks for joining us. Those were the headlines of the 730 News.
Each of us must comply with the measures that have been taken.
We begin our half-hour newscast with retirement benefits due workers registered with the National Social Insurance Fund. It requires 15 years of interrupted services with parts of a staff's earnings saved at the fund to be eligible. Officials therefore emphasize that employers must ensure that their personnel are insured and religiously make payments to avoid embarrassments upon retirement. Yoti Kalilisonge puts the recent 20% increase on pensions into context.
60 years at most. That's the age a civil servant is expected to have attained to be entitled to a pension. Victims of work-related or industrial accidents are equally eligible. There are, however, certain conditions to meet in order to have retirement benefits.
Concerning the old age pension, you must have saved or contributed for 15 years, which is equivalent to 180 months. When you meet those criteria, it means that you can now stop working and then you do the necessary paperwork at National Social Insurance Fund, and then your pension you start having access to.
The rule doesn't apply to invalidity pensions.
It depends on the level of your incapacity. So, for example, if you get involved in an accident and you lose your two arms, National Social Insurance will take care of you until.
In the case where an active worker failed to contribute for up to 15 years, something could still be done.
Vous avez travaillé.
You have worked and not contributed for up to 15 years. They will give you part of your pension.
Officials nonetheless insist on the importance of being insured.
It is something which is an imperative that workers must be registered at the National Social Insurance Fund, and the employers must equally deduct the contribution and forward them to the fund.
The 20% increase in old age and incapacity pensions therefore sees those concerned with more dues to. while no longer in active service.
The amount of funds invested by the state through the increased 20% coefficient for pensions and death benefits will definitely improve on the well-being of Cameroonians who've been contributing to the National Social Insurance Fund. Ewane Pole now probes into the statistical proportion of the beneficiaries and the impact of such an increment on the Treasury.
The decision by the head of state, President Paul Biya, to raise by 20% the pension dues paid to workers of the public sector, as stipulated in the decree signed on Wednesday, July 8, 2020, is good news for retired persons in Cameroon. The remuneration applicable to retired people, persons with invalidity, and those covered by death insurance will have an impact on the state's budget and a welcome relief to pensioners.
For the impact, when you apply a rate of 20%, you are about 1.2 billion per month and approximately 15 billion a year. For the beneficiary, you understand that their revenue will increase, so their life also will be ameliorated in one way or another. Government cannot take a measure without a study. So when they take the measure, they know that for some time, fund is capable to pay. Centers do not have for now any problem to pay.
The National Insurance Fund, which has been clamoring for this reform with respect to financing parameters of the regime it manages, has applauded the head of state's decision. The reaffirmed will and commitment of President Paul Biya has now given the Cameroonian Social Security Scheme the much-needed impetus. It is part of the President's approach to the fight against poverty.
In one of our top stories, the Special Council Support Fund for Mutual Assistance, FACOM, is evaluating the construction of the low-cost housing scheme in Bogo in the Far North region. 20 houses worth over 300 million CFA francs will be put at the disposal of civil servants with the collaboration of Crédit Foncier. Details of the inspection with our reporter Henry Tato Ekambi.
Civil servants working in Bogo in the Diamare division have always preferred to stay in Marua while taking the 40 to 50-minute journey to work because of what they term the lack of decent houses in this municipality in the far north. This problem will soon be over, with 20 decent and affordable houses being constructed. The housing units, which are a fruit of the partnership of the Special Council Support Fund for Mutual Assistance FACOM and Crédit Foncier Cameroon, are now near completion.
We are really eager to see the end of the project because we cannot really find houses that suits us. Some of us have to go to Marua to stay.
The General Manager of FACOM, Camille Akoua, and the General Manager of Crédit Foncier Cameroon, Jean-Paul Missy, who were at the construction site, saw for themselves the progress made on the houses, though they instructed the construction companies to speed up the work. Bogo is just one of the 24 municipalities in Cameroon benefiting from the functional housing units, which aims at addressing the deficit in affordable and decent housing.
The Adamawa region, the need for low-cost housing is as pressing as elsewhere in the nation. This affirmation was made by the Director Generals of the Special Council Support Fund for Mutual Assistance and the Cameroon Loan Fund, Crédit Foncier. Philippe Camille Akoua and Jean-Paul Missy called on external partners to support the 402 million CFA francs project in the region. Noeya Ben Modika tells us more.
The construction of 24 apartments in the Ngaoundéré 1 Council is part of the municipal housing construction program being realized by FACOM and Crédit Foncier in partnership with the United Councils and Cities of Cameroon. Started since January the 15th, 2020, foundations have been laid for some, the blocks molded, some walls elevated for others, and drainage patterns fixed. Despite the rains and the inadequate water supply and the need for a quarry, the delegation was confident that, be it in Bay or Ngaoundéré, the active involvement of the stakeholders is capital.
What we have seen in those houses is a very big need for the population, and I think that we are very happy of what we have seen, because we have the implication of the administrative authorities, we have the mayors and all the beneficiaries, so everybody is quite happy for that project.
For his part, the city mayor of Ngaoundéré, Bobo Saliou, who is gladdened by the project, hoped that more such infrastructure would follow. According to him, Ngaoundéré, by virtue of her geographical position in the northern regions and other countries of the sub-region, entitles her to a bigger number of such basic amenities.
The phenomenon of limited access to decent lodging is also preoccupying officials of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. They've been brainstorming on ways to get the private sector involved in the financing of projects that could lead to sustainable and resilient cities. Maimuna Njoya reports on the exchange in Yaoundé.
Access to decent houses remains a huge challenge in Cameroon, and this justifies the elaboration of a strategic document for a global housing policy between 2021 and 2030. For now, Cameroonians are still to come to terms with what low-cost houses really are. Public awareness on this issue has been viewed, therefore, as a necessary sensitization guideline during the workshop on the situation of housing facilities in the country. Stakeholders have emphasized that the construction of low-cost houses can not only be the responsibility of the government.
If we produce enough of local material in our country, I think the cost of housing will be down.
Moreover, the National Institute of Statistics has released figures which show that 9 out of 10 underdeveloped households are in rural areas and mostly in high-risk zones. The different exchanges coordinated by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development has led to the conclusion that the question of low-cost houses in Cameroon is complex and requires inclusive and concerted contributions.
In other news, the inhabitants of Bamenda can now enjoy a smooth ride in some parts of the town where the Bamenda 3 Council has been at work. The Mayor, Cletus Awafongu, and the Divisional Delegate for Public Works, Paul Ngwaimbi, reassured the residents that the tarring of roads will continue till the city is completely embellished. As we hear this report by Mercy Kusi.
Taking a walk or driving through this stretch of road wouldn't have been this relaxed, especially given the heavy rains in Bamenda.
This road here was really a nightmare. There was no way for people to even go out. The whole thing was mud. So now we are really grateful for what they have done to us.
The close to 2-kilometer stretch of road linking Foncha Street and the My 3 neighborhoods in Bamenda 3 has been evaluated and qualified as great by public works officials.
It is surface dressing, what they call economic tarring. No human work is perfect, but the minor thing we observe could not cancel the great job that the company did.
The Bamenda 3 Mayor, the project is intended to improve on the livelihood of the people.
The major road is always very crowded, and we think that after doing this one, we have to decongest. And secondly, the population, their goods and services will be able to come out in and out of the quarter freely.
100 million CFA francs is said to have been put in for the work to be completed, and the funds reportedly came from the council, the community, and the government of Cameroon.
In health, the fight against the contagious coronavirus is heightening in the West region as the Bafoussam Urban Council has been sensitizing on how to reduce the number of infections. During the launch of the second phase of the campaign, the Mayor Roger Tafam insisted that the solution lies solely in the respect of barrier measures. Amy Banda reports on the launch.
No journalist was without a mask. Set to gather data on the press briefing, they were scribbling a few words, maintaining the social distance. Exemplary enough, the city mayor of the Bafoussam Urban Council, Roger Tafam, reiterated hand-washing and coughing into the elbow can reduce the risk for self and others. Speaking further, the first personality of the third city in the nation of Cameroon, Roger Tafam, called on denizens to respect the the approved social distancing, regular hand washing, and face mask wearing barrier measures.
We have been taking certain measures to fight against the virus. Unfortunately, certain population continue to make as if the sick has gone.
Representing the Minister of Communication, Governor Awafonka Augustine harped on the importance of the gathering.
People have been told what they have to do at home and out of their home.
At meeting, we cannot fight the fire blindfolded. The city mayor beckoned the media professionals to inform the population of the West region on the crucial need for an amazing spirit of solidarity to become infectious than the virus itself.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
The security situation in the littoral region has been assessed as satisfactory by the Army Chief of Staff, General René-Claude Maker. This was in the course of a 4-day working visit where he inspected the operations of the 2nd and the 5th Joint Military Regions of the country. Gladys Atemba Chechuma Banla reports.
Douala is notorious for gangsterism, drug abuse, human trafficking and money laundering. But with persistent military patrols, the Army Chief of Staff, General René-Claude Maker, is describing the situation as being under control.
I always go to the field to carry out operational control missions to ensure that the security situation of the country is not threatened and the officers are not facing difficulties exercising their duties. The present control is taking place shortly after the appointment of new officials of the 2nd and 5th Joint Military Regions. So my goal is to guide them on how to implement the directives handed down by hierarchy to the different regions. I have seen for myself that there are no major problems.
In Douala, the general encouraged the military officials to continue working hard to ensure the security of goods and persons. The 2nd Joint Military Region is made up of the littoral and southwest with command posts in Douala.
The littoral region is the hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic, and the inhabitants are now more than ever before urged to be responsible to protect themselves and to protect others. With over 3,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Douala, Board with Summer at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center talks with the Regional Delegate for Public Health for the Littoral, Dr. Jean de Disongo. That is in a video chat. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Esther, KIMA, and welcome to the Public Health Emergency Operations Center this evening, where our tour of the different regions to evaluate measures put in place by the government to limit the spread of COVID-19 takes us to the littoral region of Cameroon. That region, just like the center, the west and the east regions of the country, happens to be where we have this increase in the number of persons tested positive for COVID-19. And our guest tonight is the Littoral Regional Delegate for Public Health, Dr. Jean de Disongo, who doubles as the Incident Manager in that part of the country, talking about the spread of COVID-19. Mr. Regional Delegate, Dr. Jean de Disongo, good evening and thanks for being a guest on the 7:30 newscast this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Sama.
Tell us, Mr. Regional Delegate, 4 months after the first case of COVID-19 was confirmed in the littoral region, make a little assessment of measures put in place so far to limit the spread of the virus in that part of the country.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the response of the region, of our region, against this outbreak. Just to say that since the month of March of this year, when we noticed the first cases of COVID-19, the region have put in place an incident management system presided by the governor of the region, and where the regional delegate is the incident manager. And this system has been decentralized to the health district of the whole region, just to enhance sensitization, active finding of cases, and in those health district, we have opened 9 centers for testing this disease. And we also have 3 specialized centers to take care of patients suffering from the COVID-19, notably the one of Yasa, the one of Mapelepe Stadium, and the last one that has been opened a few days ago by his Secretary of State of the Minister of Health, Mr. Ali Mayatu.
And given that the Littoral region happens to be one of those regions where we have this increase in the number of persons infected with COVID-19, tell us which parts of Douala are highly affected with persons tested positive for COVID-19.
Thank you. For the almost 3,000 cases of the region, we have 95% of those cases based in Douala town. That's why we hope that Douala is the most touched by this outbreak, since the Douala town has 9 health districts between the 24 health districts for the whole region. And we noticed an average of 200 new cases every week. And that's why also we call on people just to continue to apply these measures, notably the wearing of face masks, the washing hands with running water and soap or using sanitizer, and social distance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Jean de Disongo. You are the Regional Delegate for Public Health in the nation's economic capital, Douala, and the Incident Manager for that region. Esther KIMA, as you heard it from the Regional Delegates, it has been noticed that if there is this increase in the number of persons tested positive for COVID-19 in the Littoral region, it is because more and more persons there have stopped respecting the different outline measures by the government to limit the spread of COVID-19. Our next call on the regions will be next week, Saturday, and this time we shall be in the West region of Cameroon. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you very much, Baldwin Sama. And as we tour the regions to get the pulse of COVID-19 infections, we shall be thrilling you with such video chats. Over in the Southwest region, a consignment of contraband, pharmaceutical products and non-biodegradable plastic bags have been impounded by the forces of law and order in Limbe. The illicit and expired goods which pose a threat to the health of consumers are due to be destroyed by officials of the Ministry of the Environment and the Protection of Nature. Tanjong Levi Sagbo tells us more.
The fight against product has received a boost in the Southwest region as forces of law and order seized items.
16 bags of plastic and bags of 100 kilograms. Any bags was 100 kilograms. And we have also 85 cartons of drugs that are illegal. I would just call for the population to continue to collaborate with the forces of defense.
The contraband goods have been handed over to officials of the Ministry of Public Health and the Ministry of Environment, Protection of Nature and Sustainable Development for eventual destruction.
We stay in Limbe, where structures mounted in disregard of urban rules along the streets have been destroyed. The makeshift structures, which make circulation difficult in the seaside resort, according to the Limbe City Mayor, Andrew Mutanga Munjimba, was a poor reflection of the town. Henry Mekole tells us more.
Some of the major streets in the city of Limbe look like a big construction site with heavy-duty trucks and machines moving in and out. The machines were pulling down all unwanted structures along major streets as the trucks transported the destroyed roofing sheets, planks, blocks, amongst other building materials from the streets to dump sites. For the mayor of the city of Limbe, Andrew Mutanga Munjimba, the major objective of the exercise is to make circulation easy in the city of Limbe and to clean up the major streets of all makeshift structures.
It's a routine job in principle. But people think that they can do whatever they like to do in a town. There are rules and regulations. For instance, there was no longer no more pedestrian walk. All the pedestrian walks were already occupied by merchant commercial stores, which were not received. And now that we are in this exercise of the greatest town of the Republic of Cameroon.
The exercise is a routine exercise, according to the city mayor, meaning if people go back to their old habits of reconstructing makeshift structures along major streets, the city mayor says the machines will still come back.
We apologize for the poor sound quality of that report. About 10,000 cocoa farmers in Cameroon will receive financial assistance worth over 550 million CFA francs for a quantitative and qualitative production. The aid is from the Agro-Produce Management Services Limited, specialized in cocoa transformation. Victor Sige reports on the first beneficiaries in Obala in the Center region.
The project, initiated by Agro-Produce Management Service, is destined to boost the cultivation of cocoa in some regions in the country, notably the center, southwest, and littoral regions. Setting the pace at Obala, over 200 villages benefited from the gesture.
Our vision is, first of all, to let our farmers to understand that they are not just a lay farmer as they used to understand before, but we want to make them to know that as a farmer, you are a business person and you can get partnership with an organization like AMS who will support and follow you with different trainings, support you with chemical inputs, support you with seedlings.
The estimated 550 million CFA francs is meant for close to 10,000 farmers involved in the program.
Within our context, we have the Social Responsibility Department that finds out the challenges that our people are getting. Like, for example, you can see the borehole. We also know that this area has a problem of water, and we have boreholes like this. This is one of them. We have farmer development centers that we have put in place.
The bonus, otherwise known as premium, is an additional amount that cocoa farmers, after a successful certification year, receive over the normal market price.
On today's obituary, the late chairperson of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, Dr. Chemuta Banda Divine, has been buried. The career diplomat and human rights defender was coffined at the General Hospital in Yaoundé yesterday and paid homage at the institution he served as president for 17 years. Beatrice Lawsamba reports on the tributes paid him.
His open casket lay in the hall of the Yaoundé General Hospital mortuary, flanked by a few rotating honor guard to tie with social distancing prescriptions. The remains of Dr. Chemuta Divine Banda, chairperson of the National Human Rights Institution, processed from the morgue to a fuller hall at the institution's headquarters in Yaoundé for tributes. The legendary human rights activist's flawless efforts in defending human rights made him a national icon. The freshest memories of his human rights cause are his participation in the inquiry the head of state ordered to shed light on the Ngabo tragedy in the Northwest region and his contribution to the major national dialogue in 2019. 17 years spent at the helm of the National Human Rights Commission gave him a voice within the international human rights community that has poured tributes to him. The unique president of Cameroon's Commission on Human Rights and Freedom was also a career diplomat with rank of plenipotentiary minister. The Ministry of External Relations paid him last homage on this occasion. Dr. Chemuta Divine Banda took his last breath 11 days after he took ill on May 17, known to have suffered from a long-standing failing health.
And may his soul rest in peace. On to one of our top stories. Today is the International Day for Nelson Mandela, which coincides with the birth date of Nelson Mandela. 67 minutes are spent by people doing charity and promoting peace and solidarity, values dear to the iconic figure. Tonight, Charles Ebune takes us to the Mandela House in Soweto, South Africa.
A journey to the Mandela House, Vilakazi Street, Orlando West, Soweto, South Africa, seems to me a blend of facts and emotions passing through the family business.
Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela, Nelson Mandela,
and this is a foretaste of the life of the man, peace and endurance for a better future. The first living human being with an international day to honor him. The Mandela Day gets full meaning inside the Mandela House.
The rich cultural heritage this house has, the impact that it has actually in terms of historical value.
I think we should all live up to the standards that he developed when he became president.
The memorabilia here retells in picture the legendary legacy of Madiba, who spent 95 years on earth, 27 of them behind the bars, to seek for equality amongst people.
This is the same bed where Nelson Mandela spent 11 nights as soon as he left the Robben Island prisons in 1990.
I think it's a great way to preserve history and to view the house of this wonderful person.
And here, life is full of emotions, but also time to reason before you act. Charles Obunde, CRTV News, on Mandela Bed, Soweto, South Africa.
Before we end this edition of the 7:30 News, a reading of this press release, the Minister of Basic Education, Professor Laurent Toningwa, informs candidates who registered for official examinations organized by the Ministry of Basic Education, parents and the entire education community that in conformity with the decision modifying the calendar of official examinations in the Ministry of Basic Education for the 2020 session, the Certificat d'études primaires (CEP) and the First School Living Certificate examinations shall effectively take place on Tuesday the 21st and on Wednesday the 22nd of July 2020 throughout the national territory. To this effect, he recommends that candidates should present themselves early enough in the examination centers, carrying along their school identity documents or acceptance slips in order to take part in the roll call that will be done before 7 a.m. They should bring along face masks and all authorized writing material. Parents should provide snacks for their children, 2 clean uniforms for the 2 days of writing, and head teachers should be present in the examination centers on the first day in order to identify their candidates and to assist those who might encounter some difficulties. Finally, the Minister of Basic Education reassures the entire education community that the government and its partners have taken all the necessary measures to ensure a COVID-19-free examination environment. It is signed by the Secretary of State on behalf of the Minister, Dr. Asheri Kilo. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. I'll be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. God willing, stay tuned to our programs on the CRTV. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing